It is 12:02 by my time, all right. So, public comment. The board takes public comment on all items in the regular agenda. Public input on a regular agenda item will be taken at its appropriate discussion. Public input on an item on the agenda or consent agenda may be identified and requested for consideration by the board at this time. The board may request an item to be placed on a future agenda or for the consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for public comment. So at this time, do we have any public comment? None? We'll just keep moving then. Consider consent agenda, consideration of approving the November 21st, 2019 meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review those?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. All right. Let's move on to the regular agenda. All right. So presentation of the monthly financial report and the event calendar.
Good morning, all, or good afternoon. Okay, we're going to look at January bookings. Of course, was a slow time for us. Of course, coming into the new year, we had a total of 30 events booked, which was 15 at the convention center, 3 at the Coliseum. Of course, we didn't have any events at the River Stage in Paseo, Pecan Creek in January, 1 at the indoor arena, and then we also had 11 at the East Mess. Of course, February changes because we do have the rodeo going on. We have other events, tattoo convention, all types of events. Convention Center has 24 booked. Coliseum is 13. River Stage, of course, still doesn't have any. 0, as well as the Paseo. Pecan Creek has 3. East Mess has 13, and then the indoor arena also has 1. Of course, the numbers do start picking up as we get closer into the springtime, and we'll have more and more events. This is our first week going into rodeo. Rodeo starts tonight. I'm looking forward to it.
Question, Sid. On those, sorry, you've got 10 COSA on the convention center. So that's 1 month. I assume 2 of those is council. What just ignorance on mine, what else is that made up of? Just curiosity. You don't have to have exact numbers of each one, but.
So that would include any types of meetings that are here. If you look at the February calendar that we have, there's COSA zone. No, that zoning's at East Mess. Let me look through the calendar. Construction Board has one on the 6th.
Planning still meets in here.
Yes, planning does still meet as well.
Here's DHRC.
Yes.
Here's doesn't meet here anymore.
Yeah, they meet at the East Mess.
So you're telling me to look at the calendar that you provided?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
So a question, and I don't know if we ever clarified this. I knew that there was some discussion on what we would talk about as far as financials, and of course, we understand our scope as far as what we can, but can we still provide financials and just be made aware of the numbers?
Yeah, so we went ahead and put in the financials, of course, for this month, and then moving forward. So if we are voting on something to do with, let's say, the River Stage and it's the restrooms, or and we have a bid for it and approximate amount, we will be able to bring those numbers forward to you all to make the best decision possible.
But having Don up here presenting the numbers and any insight on anything is not something that we want to do?
If Don can come up here and speak towards the numbers and stuff, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Well, we can do it on
If you got
going
any
forward.
questions- if you
Is
have
that
any-
something that y'all still be interested in, is for Don to come up here and giving you numbers and any insights? Because I was found it informative whenever you came up here and spoke, even though we can't take any action on it, just to have the knowledge. Y'all agree with that?
Yeah, and I like to hear projects and how they're doing and if it's within budget. And I mean, I'd like to, but.
I think we're okay to know the information, even though that we can't take any action on the information. I think it's still good to know the information. All right, so we'll move forward then. Election of chair and vice chair for the Civic Events Advisory Board. Of course, Mr. Mahaffey here will be the incoming chair after this meeting, so we need to appoint a new vice chair. So at this point, do we have any nominations for the vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Karen as vice chair,
Okay.
if I may. I think she's been great. I think she's been on here long enough to kind of get her feet wet and understand things, and kind of a new up-and-coming member, I believe. So just my
Yeah.
nomination.
Do we have any other nominations?
I don't mind being just a member of the board. I think you'd be a better vice chair.
Any other nominations?
I think Karen would be the good choice.
All right, we've had a motion for Karen to be the incoming vice chair. Do I hear a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No? Okay. Congratulations, Karen. You are the new vice chair. Good. All right. Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so discussion of civic events facility projects and recommended any related matters.
Okay, so the last Civic Events Board meeting that we had, it was in November, and we did discuss bringing forward to City Council to have some facility improvements done for the River Stage as well as actually River Stage and the Convention Center. Just wanted to give you all an update on that. City Council did approve it on December 17th of last year. River Stage issues, of course, the drainage issues that we have over there, we're estimating the completion date by February 2020. River Stage restrooms, we're estimating the completion before April 10th. River Stage box office, we're actually still waiting on bids, so we'll try to take that. We'll try to get that done at least by the summer, but it still depends on what type of events we have going on. But we can still work outside of the box office, so that's not a big deal for us if we have to have some type of construction going on while we have an event planned or scheduled. The Convention Center over here, we're going to be doing LED lighting. We're actually still waiting on one more bid on that one. Convention Center sound system, we're just waiting on the paperwork from the contractor to start on the agreement. And then the seal coating for the Paseo and Farmers Market, which is a project that we had from the previous facility improvements. We're still waiting on Street and Bridge to set a date for us so we can get that completed at the Paseo and the Farmers Market. Any question on any of the facility improvements? Let me go back.
I do. Did I understand correctly that the renovations on the restrooms at the River Stage will be completed by April of this year? Are they totally redoing inside? What are they doing?
So we are taking out everything that's in there, and we're going to change out all the restrooms, and I mean, it's going to be an update for a remodel, renovation. We're not going to keep the same.
We're not going to add any, because
We're
at
not
some
adding.
point,
Not yet.
Yeah,
when
not
we
yet.
went down there,
Not yet.
didn't we
So-
talk about that?
Yeah, so when we first started, they wanted to make sure that we had all the maintenance issues cleared up first before any additions are being added. So my goal is once we complete the maintenance issues for the River Stage, for the restrooms, for the concession stands, and for the box office, then I want to move forward and go with the VIP rooms and the dressing room areas and all of that stuff. And then phase 3 should be the additions, the add-ons and stuff. So it's a 3-part phase.
Oh, that's huge.
And so you bring up an interesting point. You know, now we only meet 4 times a year, okay? So to become more informed of what's going on, you know, we've formed some subcommittees, and I think it's going to be important for the subcommittees to actually meet, actually go out there and plan out what we want. I know for me, I had asked to be part of the Paseo, so that's something that I hope that I can focus a little bit more on, so that when we come up here, we know exactly what's about to be recommended to that. So it's important as we go on, and Steve will bring leadership to that, but for us to actually go out and be subcommittees, so that when we come to the regular meetings, we've spoken to our civic events manager and know what we've recommended and what's going on, and all the subcommittees will be very well informed.
And I'm hoping, my plan is by at least beginning part of May. Of course, since we won't have a board meeting probably in May, but we will still be able to all meet out there, and you all will be able to see the completion of the restrooms and everything else that's done.
Even though we're not meeting every month, is it still possible to get a copy of the calendar every month?
Sure.
Can you email?
Sure.
I mean, I feel kind of silly when I don't even know what's going on.
We'll do. We'll make sure that we send you out a calendar every month.
That'd be
We'll send that to the
great.
board.
2 quick questions. One, you've got a completion date, February 2020 for the drainage. Has that started? It's a pretty quick completion date, so I'm just.
Oh, yeah, and they're gonna they already have that situated. I think
Okay.
it's gonna start in like the next 2 weeks,
Okay,
and then
Gotcha.
it'll be complete.
okay. And then on the next slide, you've got the LED lighting.
Yes, sir.
are you receiving quotes or are you actually going out for bid?
We're receiving quotes on it.
Okay.
I apologize, I should have put quotes on there.
You're good.
But we're receiving quotes, but we're actually waiting on just one quote that we must have before we turn in the packet.
So 2 questions on that one, and then, one, are they still doing rebates? Are we able to receive rebates for LED updates?
Yes, for LED lighting, we just received our one for the Paseo.
Okay.
And then we did receive the one for the Coliseum too as well.
Okay, great. And then what exactly does that lighting involve?
Sorry, which part? LED lighting?
Yes.
Just in the main ballroom.
Just in the, okay, I got you. Thank you.
I know the last time we had met, the board or the committee for the El Paseo, we were going to work on getting some quotes on what we had, the new business discussed on that. Did we get anything or make any progress?
We haven't because we've been focused on trying to get the
this.
river stage complete at the time and stuff, just with the timeline of everything. I want to be able to get that done before we start the spring events.
Just because I was gone. Thank you.
But we do have that on the radar too as well.
Any other questions?
Not pertaining to that, no.
Is that everything on events, on facility projects? Okay, all right. Let's go ahead and move forward. And let's go to discussion of civic event fees and recommending any related matters.
So another thing that we're working on right now is to propose the fee rates for civic events. Of course, we have plenty of fees. If you all would like to see what our fees are and what we charge, I can definitely send you all a copy of all the fees that we have listed. There are a few fees that we need to have put into the fee schedule, although we've in the past have thought that that was the type of fee that was in there. We definitely need to have in a move-in, move-out fee instead of charging a customer full rate while they're moving in. So we do have it already for the convention center. It's already placed as half of the base rental rate, and we would like to be able to add that for the river stage as well and also for the Coliseum. So whenever a client does move in, they're not getting charged the full rate to move in at the time. We charge half for them to come in and do some type of setup before the event happens.
We have been charging full rate.
We
whenever
have
they
been
move in.
either charging full rate or don't. We do it in a negotiation.
Is that kind of standard policy for?
Yes, yes. It should be able to. We should be able to use that as a negotiation tool. Whenever somebody's moving in and we say, well, we'll give you a free move-in date or, But at the time, if it's not placed in there, then we're supposed to be charging them if they're using it.
So maybe I don't understand this. So there's no fee currently.
There's no fee at all for the move-in.
And you're
But
proposed-
if they're renting it on the contract, it says they're renting it from, let's say today, let's say they're renting it today, tomorrow's the actual event, so I technically should be charging them the full base rental today and the next day as well, and the actual day of the event, sorry.
Are you, okay, let's say tomorrow's the event. So currently you're not charging anyone for this day?
Currently,
The prior day?
no. It depends on the concert, it depends on what the event is. Let's say, now, we do, for sound and for decorations, we allow them to come in no matter what. If we can, allow them to be able to come in and do the decorations or set up the sound because they have other events that are taking place too as well, and we don't want to tie up their calendar. So we do allow them to come in. But let's say somebody want to come in and start allowing move in for a trade show. We need to be able to have some type of fee in place for that so they can be able to do that.
Proposing a half
Yes.
rate?
Half of whatever the base rental rate is.
And the same would apply if they decide they don't want to come get all their stuff until the following day.
Yes. Same with the move out.
Okay, I'm with you, thanks.
But it's always been in there for the convention center, so we've never had that issue here, but it's for the Coliseum and the river stage. Honestly, for the river stage, most times they're coming in and they're just trying to move in the sound. We shouldn't be charging them anything. Exactly. Any questions on the proposed fee rates for just the Coliseum and river stage, the move-ins? Any other questions?
If they cancel, like if something were to happen and something canceled, would we retain any of that fee?
There is a policy that stated, I don't have it
Okay.
right on top, but I mean, there is a certain timeline that if
Okay.
they cancel, they can move that date, and within a certain amount of time, they don't get a refund on anything as well. Any Questions on that again?
I think, like you said, sorry, I'd keep going back to the user or the renter themselves. As long as it's defined clearly, like you said, for sound, you may not charge. For this, you might. So you might
Yes.
want to clearly define that somewhere so they know, they may decide, well, I'll hold this off until the day of. And so just throwing that out there.
It's like I said last week, like we had an event last week. I can't think of what entity it was for. So we allowed sound to come in the day prior so they can go ahead and set up because they have other jobs that they have to take care of, and maybe time doesn't permit. Now, if it is after 5 p.m., then that's a difference. But if in between 8 and 5 and we're here, you can come and set up. Next, this is another thing that we should discuss, and this may fall better into the policy instead of on the fee schedule, but I think this all goes together. So clients that rent the convention center must rent the full ballroom base rate on the Fridays and Saturdays. So with what we have, you can actually rent out a third, 2/3 of the main ballroom. A third goes for, give me 1 second, a third of it goes for $500, 2/3 goes for $1,000. Our full ballroom price is $1,500. Since this isn't put into our fees or in the policies, I get nervous that people will find out and start just renting out only half or a third, and that will affect our numbers moving forward by not charging for the full ballroom rate on the weekend, since that is your main day of business.
And most of your events that you do on Fridays, Saturdays are usually a little bit larger event, correct?
Yes, of course, there are the quinceañeras, the weddings, receptions, and all those types of events.
And if you were allowed to do thirds or halves, then technically somebody else could rent the other side, and it would be a little bit of a conflict.
Never had that question before, and it is possible now that you say that, because the other half would be available for rent.
So in other words, in order for it to be, a good event, I would assume that
You want
it's
the
either
whole.
all or nothing.
That's right. And this also wouldn't affect CVB. I know CVB does have events that take place, conventions that will take place on the weekend, so this won't affect them. If they have something that they need for just a third, then they'll be able to fall under that same price break that they've always fell under.
What is the occupancy on the ballroom?
Depends on how it's seated, how it's laid out and stuff. But I mean, when we do a full event, we can at least do 1,200 seats.
What was the half room rate?
Half room rate is
1/3, 2/3 are full.
1/3 is 500, 2/3 is 1,000. But 2/3 also, if you wanted to do a ticketed event, it's 1,000, 100. So there's different. That's why I say it depends on what the base fee is.
So I would assume you can take that to council or city attorney and ask her where that belongs, if it belongs in fees or if it belongs in policies, so that we can make the necessary changes. But we can make a recommendation.
Yeah, I just wanted to open it up for us to have that type of discussion. My next plan would be to take it to the city attorney and see where this will, where this should fall at for us.
It makes sense. Just out of curiosity, I'm not opposed to it, so let that be reflected, but why CVB being, again, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just,
Hotel rooms, hotel nights.
okay. I'm sure we're gonna be asked that question, so
So with it having hotels, then we'll be able to receive that through our hot funds.
easily justified. Thank you.
Do we need to send a vote on a recommendation on?
We get Diana since she's here. Do you mind?
Yeah, no, go ahead. Diane?
Hey, Diane, talk.
Question about this. If you do have two groups that come in on a weekend, are they both going to be charged full price if one of them is renting half and the other? Because you do have walls. That happens pretty often in the convention industry where you have two groups in at the same time, and they may just be renting half each. Are they going to both be charged full price on a weekend if they're?
I think
That's. I just want.
I think what the proposal is doing, so that there's only gonna be one rental per weekend evening.
So you would limit
Yes, in other words, it says clients will rent, if you rent the facility for a Friday or Saturday night, you have to rent the entire floor.
Because if they all rent it for Thursday, 500, 500, 500, which is.
Mike,
No, I guess my question is, if you have an association come in and they just need half the ballroom, and you have another group come in and they need the other half of the ballroom,
this would basically say if you're coming in Friday, Saturday, and you want part of the main room, you're gonna have to rent all of it. Whether you use 1/3, 2/3 of the full, you're gonna have to rent all of it. Nobody else will have access to it.
but I guess that's my concern, because what if we have a weekend group that is here, and you have another group that wants to use part of the ballroom, and you should be able to.
And why
In
couldn't they
convention-
just split the
In the convention business, that
fees?
is very, very common.
And
So
they
I'm
could
just alleviating, I'm trying to alleviate future potential issues, so.
What would be the disadvantage of being able to get a cheaper rate if it is full? Like saying that you have 3 clients for a Friday night and they all get charged $1,500. That's not a good thing, right? But if they're all charged $500 because she booked 3, what would be wrong with?
Well, I'm not even talking about if the CVB does it. I mean,
But anybody.
if you have potential revenue,
Yeah.
Well,
and you have
what I-
3 groups that just need a third, a third, a third,
Well, I would think, just from a cost standpoint, that if you were divided into thirds and everybody got charged $500, you're still making the $1,500, but I think the logistic and the manpower in order to arrange 3 different rooms would cut into what you're gonna make on the rental.
yeah, I would just make sure that's clear. I'm just trying to alleviate any challenges that you might have with groups coming in.
Would this be an inconvenience to the people selling the space, you guys? If you had to have an all or nothing scenario, like he was saying, where, hey, if you want to rent the room, you got to pay $1,500, even if you want to only rent a third.
Well, since the CVB is not affected by that, it wouldn't, but I'm just thinking of other groups that might come in that aren't hot rooms.
I guess what I'm saying, and I'll use the quinceanera as an example. If somebody comes in and goes, well, man, it's probably gonna be a small quinceanera, I'll just charge $500 and somebody else rents it. You're not gonna be able to do whatever you're doing in the other one while quinceaneра's going on, but you can't stop
Well, you
it.
should be able to, because we have sound walls. That's what I'm saying. I mean, every convention center should have the opportunity to be able to utilize all the space if needed. So,
How often does that happen, Sid?
it probably doesn't, but if, it could, and so
Yeah,
I'm just
the
saying,
potential's
when you
there.
put your verbiage, I'd just be
Are we,
cautious.
are we at the size convention center that's going to happen in the future, do you think, or no?
It could. It could. Again, I'm just trying to alleviate any challenges you might have.
I think you guys should be able to use your discretion on like the client and say, you feel for it if that scenario arises. Hey, this is the policy, but if you have 3 groups that are interested and they're very small and they can fit, then, hey, guess what? I can only, need to charge you $500.
Be better than losing the potential.
Now, when it comes within a certain amount of time, with 2 months, and we're trying to still fill the calendar, and somebody says, hey, we want that date or whatever, we're open to working with them. But, I don't think this happens often. It won't happen often, but it can arise at some point,
So my question is having to rent the full ballroom at $1,500, is that going to limit the number of rentals on a Friday or Saturday night?
Say it one more time.
In other words, if somebody wanted to come in here and have a smaller event and they don't want the entire ballroom because they're trying to save money, are you going to lose those clients?
This is the thing, a lot of the calendar, let's say next year for this time frame, a lot of the Saturdays are already booked. People come in to book a year out all the time for us. So it's not that we have open dates already for that.
I guess I'm assuming that if something's going on Friday, Saturday night, it's a bigger type thing, a wedding, a
Yes,
quinceanera,
it
those
normally
things.
is.
And if you rent a venue in your mind, you're thinking the venue is,
The whole venue,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
I can see it on your Monday through Thursdays, and I don't know if y'all do Sundays, but you know.
Yeah, see, we kept Sundays
we're-
off
We're
for
split, yeah, we're splitting up would be a separate issue, but I don't have an issue with that for Fridays and Saturday nights.
I mean, whatever recommendation you all would like to make, again, we could possibly bring this back, well,
I think you should have the flexibility to choose either, you know, like obviously this scenario if it works, or if you need to negotiate less, like, you know, you should have the ability to do both.
I missed part of the conversation, but yeah, you could, if somebody comes in and wants to rent part of it, you charge them the full amount, but if somebody else wants the rest of the space, could,
Yeah, potentially work it out.
Yeah.
through-
If-
And you should be able to have the leverage.
You're saying if the events are conducive to each other, where one's not
Yes,
gonna disturb the
yes.
other.
Then you
It
would
should
go,
be a judgment on
allows,
the booker.
allows some flexibility.
but then you would reduce the rate that first person's paying.
Yes. Yes, I think you'd have to.
Well, I don't know, but at that point, if they've already signed a contract, you'd basically have to go and ask them, hey, do you mind?
Well, you would have to tell them up front that this is a possibility if it's conducive.
Yeah, if you're only renting, yeah. So as long as you have, I guess my,
do
does
you
this
feel
need
like
to be
you-
voted on or anything? Because my
Yeah.
opinion would be just, you should have all the cards in your hand. If you guys are if your department's negotiating the contracts, you should be able to have this card in your hand along with splitting it on a Friday on both sides of the spectrum.
I mean, you do this on a day-to-day basis. Do you need the flexibility that they're recommending? Or would you be more comfortable doing the full floor on Friday and Saturday for $1,500?
Y'all can make whatever recommendation you want, but we'll take whatever input you've got, and we've got to eventually take it to the city attorney and council, but
I'll make a recommendation that you have this along with, you know, the ability to split the rooms and as well. Like, you know, you should have the cards.
So let me understand the motion. So the motion that you're making as
So
far
it's
as
a recommendation. I was
recommendation?
just, yeah.
Okay, so the recommendation that you're making is that,
You should be able to have this proposed fee rates as well as, you know, you could get more conservative and, you know, split them up if you want, but like, you should have the cards. You should have the ability to do this on this sheet here, and you should be able to do other things like, you know.
well,
it's just a
that's what you have,
Be
that's what you have now,
Yeah,
though,
you should be
right?
able to be flexible, so I mean, however that works
I
out.
think that's what he has now.
yeah, but if somebody comes in and just wants a third on the weekend, he
has the
can't charge
ability
them
to
the
say, no, it's
1,500.
$1,500, yeah. And you have to rent the whole thing.
We don't have that now.
we don't have that now. Yeah.
You can't just do this now.
Yeah.
So we're just adding another tool, another card in the negotiation with the clients.
Oh, sorry. In the policies, the recent policies that were approved, your ability to negotiate with oversight by the committee, does that fall over under the convention center too, or is it?
I mean, it falls in the convention center, but that was more of
Is it
if
for
we were
all-
negotiating. I
Is
can't
it
go
for all
below this price.
facilities?
Yes.
Okay, then I think that might cover this. If we get the authorization to charge the full amount, but if some opportunity comes up to utilize the space more fully with oversight of the committee, he could negotiate a different deal.
Yeah, that's perfect.
That's what I'm thinking, but we got to check with the city attorney.
Do we need to make a recommendation, or do we need to make a motion for our recommendation?
I don't know, I would feel comfortable moving forward if we got a recommendation on charging the full rate for Friday, Saturdays.
So Tim, if you could reword your
I
recommendation into a
recommend
motion?
That I make a motion that we allow Sid to be able to charge the full base rate on Fridays and Saturdays.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No? Okay, motion passes. You've got a recommendation?
We'll check with the city attorney.
Yeah.
Just let us know how that turns out. So so that comes to another point. So we've made a recommendation, we've taken a vote, and then you'll do this. Of course, our next meeting is not 4 months till 3 months away.
We can do it at any time, so
Right,
it
but
doesn't
what I'm
have
saying
to
is
be in
that
a
could,
row.
you know, other than me, I guess, seeing what goes on a city council meeting, which a lot of times I don't get to, can you email us any
Give you an update.
follow-ups on any recommendations that we make by the board?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we know, since we have such a time lapse, so
Just
that,
as long as we're not responding.
That's right.
And I think, we do a monthly report. I think every month we could just send you an update. Here's what's going on in civic events. Here's
that'd
projects,
So we'll do.
that'd be great.
the main
That'd be great.
events.
And that way, if we're taking actions and we're making recommendations and voting and stuff like that,
Here's
we
a
have
follow-up.
follow-up
Here's a
on
follow-up.
what happened versus waiting 3 months.
I think that's quite appropriate.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So, consideration of any future agenda items. So, before I turn over the gavel over to Steve, I'm going to reemphasize again that subcommittees are going to be very important to the success of this board, okay? If you want to serve on a board, meet, bring your recommendations, go out there and do everything you can so that you champion whatever you're after, and so that we can go out there, because I feel like that's the only way we're gonna move forward, And I know, Steve, I would assume that you're probably gonna wanna set up your subcommittees and go out there and make sure that if he appoints you a subcommittee and you choose to participate, that you go out there and actively meet and come in and bring recommendations. And if there's something that you wanna see happen with civic events, then I think that's gonna give you the opportunity.
But aren't the subcommittees already set up, or does that change every year?
Well, I mean, Steve is going to be the incoming president of the board, so he certainly has it within his rights to appoint or change any subcommittees. But we did have subcommittees, and they could very well possibly stay the same.
At the next meeting, can we get a list of every subcommittee that's tied in with this board and who's on it?
Yeah, so we
Do you
had.
have that information?
I'll make sure we have it. I don't remember them off top. I do know that Billy and Steve were on the subcommittee for the, CVB.
For the CVB,
Talk show and
Yes.
the whole group.
yes.
The other subcommittee was for the River Stage was Tim,
Dale and Tim and
Dale,
myself.
and yourself, and then for the Paseo was,
Billy and Dell, okay.
that's right.
And so that's something that unless, Steve, you plan on making any changes, is something that I want to start working on the Paseo, and meet with Naomi and meet with Dell and give them a holler and say, hey, let's try and see if we can't do something. And I don't know how many rentals you got. I know you don't have any rentals right now, but I'm assuming that's weather related.
Yeah, it's
simply
all
because it's an
weather-related
outdoor
for right
venue.
now.
But man, I just feel, and I'm talking, so I probably shouldn't go into that because we're not really talking about it. But I just feel like the place has the potential. All right. So anyways, any consideration of any future agenda items?
What about our bylaws? Are they being amended to show that we don't meet every month like we used to, like it says?
Well, I guess that brings up a good point, Karen, is maybe before we're adjourned, I guess we need to appoint some a policy board subcommittee and a bylaw subcommittee.
Well, remember, we just did the policies already, so we don't have to appoint them just yet.
What time of
with
the
the-
year do you want to do policies and
Normally, we
bylaws?
do policies at the end of the year, so October, November timeframe, and then we bring it to the board and
Okay.
move forward from there. Because at the last November meeting, we did discuss policies.
Okay.
Do you do the bylaws at the same time?
Bylaws, I'll need to go back and check when the last time that we actually did the bylaws, because since when we had all that, when all that stuff was being discussed, I know the bylaws had changed then, but I do need to check with the city attorney and see if they've been updated to reflect what the new, what it stands with the ordinance and stuff.
So why don't we, once you visit with them, why don't you send everybody a fresh policy and fresh bylaw?
Will do.
Okay? All right. Any other discussion? All right. Motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned.